right, we'll just hop into it. Again, thanks everybody for coming, showing up. Today's session is going to be on improving communications with Power Pages and Power App portals. We're excited to kind of show you guys what we could do. Go to the next slide though, and that'd be great. Thanks. Just with every session, it's going to be recorded. They're going to be available to everybody after the event. Everyone's going to be muted, so if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll respond to them. If you have any problems with any connections or anything like that, please just send an email at support@journeyteam.com. And at the end of the session, I'm going to send in the chat a survey out, and we're going to have a $50 Amazon gift card to give away, and also at the end of the conference, and I think tomorrow we're going to give away a Sapphire Service Pro 9. All right, a little bit about us. We have over 130 team members, 150 active customers in the past 6 months, 29 years in business. Over 90% of our clients, customers, have been used as references, 4 solution partner designations, and over 1,300 projects completed over the past 5 years. Which is pretty mind-blowing. All right, so a little bit here, it's hard to see on this slide, but we've been Microsoft partner 2 years, 2020, 2019. We've been voted best place, one of the best and top places to work by 4 or 5 different places, and it's been pretty amazing. Been here for about a year myself personally, and it's honestly the best place I've ever worked. Great culture. We really care about our clients. We want to give you guys a white glove experience, and there you go. There's some of the things we've been awarded best places to work. All right, and what makes us special? And also what makes us special, we do the whole Microsoft stack, ERP, CRM, Azure, Power BI, everything that you see on here is what we do. If you could think about, if you could dream it, we could definitely do it. Pretty special. Most partners just specialize in 1 or 2, but we do the whole stack. Anyways, the presenter here is going to be Logan Anderson. Pretty incredible, very knowledgeable. He's very excited to show you guys what we could do. And Logan, the time's yours, man.
Sounds good. So like you said, I'm Logan Anderson. I am one of our Dynamics 365 senior developers. I've been with JourneyTEAM for 10 years. I worked a couple of years on the SharePoint team, and the last seven years have been on our Dynamics CRM team, and now Power Platform and everything in that area. So our presentation's on improving communications with Power Pages. Power Pages is just this. It was looking like a new thing, and so everybody was wondering, is it still portals or is Power Pages its own thing? So we're going to kind of go into some of that. We're also going to go through how to provision a site, do an overview of the new Power Pages designer, things you can do with authentication, how we set up tables and permissions, and then we'll go through an example of a company, fictional shoe company that we made up called Journey Enterprise, and we'll go through what it would look like to create their company branding and theming, and have a couple of pages, views, and forms set up for that company. So what is Power Pages? So Power Pages is a way to create external facing sites that are connected to the Power Platform. So you have the other software you could use would be WordPress, but then with Power Pages you have another WYSIWYG type editor where you can go through and someone with no code knowledge can go through and set up a website, but it's out of the box, it is connected to a Power Platform environment, and you still have access to the security and different ways to authenticate with Azure and Dynamics. So Power Apps portals is what it used to be called, and now it's Power Pages, but it isn't just a rename. They've also added a lot of new features into the designer so that you need to know less about dynamics and a relational database and how all that ties together, and you can spend more of your time on this front-end designer and to be able to get your site up and running with someone with low code to no code knowledge. But they also have added in the capabilities of Pro Code, where you can use Visual Studio Code in a lot of the areas. So the other thing that they've separated out is portals. And so it was originally ADX portals many years ago, and then it changed to Power Apps portals when Microsoft bought it, and then now it's Power Pages. And so another change with that move is before you used to have a Dynamics 365 module or app like sales or customer service or field service in order to utilize this. But now you can just have a Power Platform environment that doesn't have any of those and is it's slightly separated away from Dynamics. So there is still a lot of the Dynamics customizations and sites that are built around that, but you also have the ability to do as minimal as possible on the Power Platform side in order to get a Power Pages site up. So provisioning a Power Pages site, you have a Power Page site for each of your it's at the environment level. So you can have your dev and test and prod environments, and you can have your site, a different site on each one of those environments. But you can also have multiple sites on each of your environments. So you could have a environment that has 5 different Power Pages sites, just depending on how they're interacting with the customer, vendor, or employees. And then that site can be provisioned within minutes. So we're gonna jump into that and start looking through the Power Pages interface and how you would create that. So right here, another thing that you'll notice is it now has its own URL, where this is make.powerpages.microsoft.com. Not to be confused with make.powerapps.com. But you'll see it's still connected to specific environments. So up at the top, you'd want to make sure you're in the correct environment that you're intending to be in. And you'll see I already have a site created here, but we can have multiple sites on a single environment. So I'm just going to click here to create a site. So this will load up, and it has all the different out-of-the-box design templates that you can do to set up your site. First, you'll see there's the site design, and this is just a design template that doesn't have like any sort of content or anything to go along with it. It's just showing you what your page can look like. And then when we step into, let's look at we have the scheduling, that it's a demo of how someone could schedule meetings. And then you also have application submission, where it's a template built out to allow people to submit applications. And it's still fully customizable. Just because you use the template does not mean you're bound to what that template looks like. They also have like an after-school registration program that you can kind of demo out people signing up for different sessions and registering for things. But then you have the actual online environment where, I mean, the Dynamics 365 environments that you can access. So let me switch over to environments that has Dynamics 365 so you can see what those templates would look like. So here you have, most of these will be familiar, but they've been re-rendered a bit, and they've also added this modern community. So you have your community that's just peer-to-peer forums and blogs and feedback. Your customer portal, that's a place for customers to view orders and history and manage their contacts within their company. Then you have customer self-service is used for it's used with the customer service Dynamics 365 app, and you can add your knowledge and support resources and allow people to view cases and provide feedback. Employee self-service is kind of an internal site where people can create their cases, manage their employee profile. Then you have field service that's directly tied to the field service Dynamics 365 application. And there's modern community, which is kind of like the community site, but with the addition of a ideas functionality where people can submit ideas and feedback to your company, kind of like how Microsoft has their ideas and feedback that you can submit on their products. And then you have the partner portal that is for partner onboarding, communications, and can be integrated with field service and project operations for additional functionality. So if we were just to select one of these site designs, then just gives you a little overview of what your different pages would look like. And if you choose that template, then you can give your site a name. And so your site has the Power Apps portal's domain, and you're in charge of what the subdomain is. So your subdomain does need to be unique because this is shared throughout all of anybody that has a building a Power Pages site. But it will tell you whether or not it's unique here. And you can give your site a name just so that you can has a name when you're accessing all your different sites within Power Pages. But we won't go through actually creating one here because it does take a couple minutes for it to provision and set that up. But what we'll do is go into just a very vanilla. This is showing what you can do without even having any of the Dynamics apps selected or licensed in your environment. So we have this one that I spun up earlier, and I just grabbed one of those site designs. And so this one I have made a public site, so it's just letting me know you're editing a public site. And the public site means just anybody can hit that URL. If I had it as a private site, then that would only be for people that are signed into my environment and have access to that. So you'll see if you've used Power Pages or the portal management, this Power Apps portal or the portal management, this design interface is way more user friendly, and we're able to do a lot more editing and see see different things easier through this designer. So we can start out with, you initially have your pages. So that's going to be all your different pages in your navigation and your any of your other subliminary or supplementary pages, like you have your access denied. What happens if someone doesn't have access, or if they're offline, or if they've entered a URL where that page doesn't exist or no longer exists. So you have control of what those pages look like as well. Then if we go into styling, you have a bunch of different out-of-the-box themes that you can select from, and you can just click on it and it renders that, and you can see what that looks like. You have all your colors and your just different headings, subheadings, your buttons, what that's going to look like, what your links will look like. And then if we come over to data, I'll just discard that. This is one of the newer areas that they've exposed that allows you to see what kind of data you're pulling into your site. So at this point, I haven't added any other tables into this portal site, so we just have feedback. But you can see your views and your forms. It does give you access to create new columns, new views, and new forms from this interface. But if you're going to be moving your portal environment and have like a test environment and a dev environment and then a production one, you would want to be making any of these schema changes that would have to do with new columns, new views, new forms. You would want that all to be within a solution and not actually through this editor. So you have to be a little bit careful on what you edit with the data here, but it does give you a good overview of what your forms and views and data is going to look like. And then the last thing, you have the setup, and this is where you can just do a little bit of administration of the site. You have your site details, go live checklist. There's a couple of things in here that you can do to speed up your site and secure your site, as well as this is making sure that you have allocated licenses, because as you can see, we set this one up as a trial site, and in 10 days it will be locked. I'll be locked out until I provide licensing. So just giving you an easy way to see everything you need to check off before you go live with that site. You have your authentication, which is your how users are getting into the system. So a lot of this is done through just out of the box a local sign-in, which means they have a contact in your Power Platform environment, and that contact has a username and password that they can create on their own, and that's how they would be signing in. Then you have Azure Active Directory that's enabled by default, but that also gives you access to if you have this site as a private site and not a public site, then people that are only inside of your Active Directory can access it, and that's how you can lock it down there. One of the recommended options is the Azure Active Directory B2C identity provider. And so that's if you're wanting to do a more robust sign-in and configuration of what that looks like for your users. So we've had some clients where we set up a passwordless sign-in where it sends them an email, and then they just put that code in and they can get into the site. But you can have typical passwords. You have a lot more control on the Azure Active Directory B2C. And then you have a director and an Azure Active Directory that you can see all of your users and have a little bit more control of what's going on there. And then you have all of the external identities that are the Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, Twitter, Microsoft, because let's face it, there's a lot of times that you do not want to. If I click into a site and it says I need to create a new sign-in, that's a big turnoff where I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna go to another site, or maybe I don't want to do this because I don't want to create a login. But if I see there's a Google login that's already there and I don't have to create a new one, then that simplifies things a lot. So one thing that I did on this one is I set up a Google authentication. So this can easily be configured where you have a Google like cloud account, and that's kind of with LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, all those, where you create a client ID in secret, where that's just kind of a password that you can then connect to this. And so if you see that configuration, this will be, this is inactive and will be removed anyways. But there's your kind of configuration, and then you can just set up whether you want registration enabled or if you want contact mapping with an email. So that's if they, so let's say I sign in with my Google account and I want to, I don't want the system to create another duplicate contact if I already have someone with that same Google Gmail address. It'll go and associate their identity to that third party. So if we go look at that, so let me open up. So if I click on this preview button over here and click desktop, that will kind of refresh the cache, give me the site, and then I can click sign in over here. And since I enabled Google, I can choose Google as my sign in. Okay. And then you'll see that it says Logan Anderson. That is my Gmail user. Since I've already signed in on this account, it just already had the cookies and everything. So I was able to just grab that. Looks like we have a question in the chat. Yeah, so the portals per login charge, it is a similar structure with Power Pages, but it is per unique login per month. So it's not every single time somebody logs in. If somebody visits your site 20 times, you're not getting charged 20 times. So it is nice that it is now more based on unique logins, but it is, yeah, still based on how many users and how much somebody's accessing your site. Okay, so you'll see we have this Logan Anderson user, and then if I go to my contacts, so this is the portal management app for my Power Platform environment. And then I've just selected contacts over here. And then if I go look at the active contacts, this contact was created from that registration. And I can see that this user, it has their email, and then they can update what their first name, last name is when they're signing into the site. And then if you are needing to do a little bit further troubleshooting on that user, you can also see their identity provider and what the unique name is on the identity provider side, and have a little bit more control there. So that's different ways that you can handle authentication. So now if we jump into table permissions. So all of your data, I imagine you're not wanting to create this Power Pages site and then say all or nothing, people can access all my data or they can access none of it. So they've built a lot around how you can handle the permissions. They've given us page permissions, which is on specific pages, you can decide which role has access to those. So if I look at that, I can say anyone sees this. And if I want to choose, I can say which roles can see that. So out of the box, you have your authenticated users and your administrators and your anonymous web roles. So instead of security roles like Dynamics and Power Platform uses, this uses web roles. And you can assign web roles to a specific contact. So it's not, doesn't have to be at that user level. So each of those specific contacts can be given a web role, and that web role is given different table permissions and different page permissions. But then you don't see it here because anonymous is when you give everyone access to the page. But that one is another one of the web roles as well. So if we look at, so that was the page permissions. Then if we go to setup and then table permissions, we can see right now we just have this feedback table. If I do new permissions, I can say I want to associate it to the account table. So I'd say account read permissions. I just want them to be able to see accounts. Then you can click on the permissions that you want them to have access to, read, write, create, and typically want to separate your permissions so that you can do them additively and not overgive permissions. Keep that locked down as much as possible with your internal company data. And then you have this access type that you have global access. This is all rows for that table. They can see it. Contact access is if that contact that the user signed in as is associated to one of the records on this table. So if they're associated to an account, they can see that account. Then you have account access records to where you may have multiple contacts that are under the same customer, but you want them to all be able to see the same things. So like you have your vendor that there's multiple people within that company that access that vendor portal and need to see everything specific to that vendor, which would be an account. Then you can decide, okay, I only want to show records that are associated to the account rather than just the contact. And then you have self-access that is, they can edit what their contact record looks like. So that is this record right here, giving them permission to edit their profile data and anything about themselves. So you have your base table permissions, but then you can also do your child permissions. So your child permissions is when you want to give someone access to the, let's say we're still on the account record. You want to give them access to add an attachment to that account. Then that's when you would set up a child permission that gives them access to the notes table, which would be where the attachments are stored. And then they can go through and create and make an update or edit the contact record, as well as see or edit that attachment that's associated to it. So it gives you pretty granular permission on how people can access different things. Okay, so that's kind of everything with the table permissions. If we go back into the pages, let's go over just kind of what access you have. I mean, what capabilities you have when creating different pages. So you can start from blank, or you can do they have a couple out of the box different landing page styles. But then they also have custom layouts. So custom layouts is when your pro code developer comes in, where you have a lot more capabilities around editing what that whole layout looks like. So that's where you would be editing this in Visual Studio, and then updating and uploading a custom layout that can then be chosen across each of your different pages. So just for this one, let's just add that, and then we'll say vendor request. So now we have our page, and then it gives us our our template that already has a couple different sections set up. The page over here, it was added into the navigation, so we can see it over here in the navigation. But we can also change where it is in that navigation. So if I wanted to move it up, now it's in the middle here, and I can do all this without having to go and edit any code. So you can also have these drop downs where this one's pages, and then we have sub pages, and I can say actually add a new sub page to this area, or I can say make this a sub page, and now this is underneath that pages drop down. So you have a bit of control there of your navigation just straight from the editor. So then you have inside of here, you have a lot of different controls that it will allow you to use. So you have your text, image, video. Buttons is a new thing that they've added to where you can have a button that goes to a specific URL that used to have to be straight coded. You have the iframe, spaces, and then this is kind of where you get the meat of your data from your Power Platform environment, where you have your form, a multi-step form, or a list. So your form would be, this is like in Dynamics where I have my contact form. So you're exposing different fields on there. And you can create new forms so that you just have a Power Pages form that has only the specific fields that you want on there that they can access. So then you have your multi-step form, which is maybe I need to take them through a couple different tables. Is I need them to update their account and update an order and update order details. That's when you could do a multi-step form where you're connecting each page in that form is a different entity. And then you have your list that is essentially a view where you can see the list of all of those records. So kind of like back to here, I have my active contacts for the list. Okay, so another thing that they've added recently is the edit code. So now I can go directly on this page, and it will open up Visual Studio code online for me. And then it's just verifying that I know that this is a public site that I'm about to be customizing. But then I can see, here's the CSS that's doing the styling. Here's the JavaScript that's doing any sort of custom functionality. And then here's my HTML on the page. So I can see and edit how all of this is rendering on the page. So that's a really cool new feature. So then if we go back, so this is kind of what this looks like if you're starting from scratch out of the box. no other dynamics apps, and just you have a lot of control of all the different things that you can do. Now we've set up a demo site where we can show you what it looks like when you spend a little bit of time in one of these sites, and what can be configured in there. So here we've updated the name of the company, so that can be done just as easily as just editing the text, as well as we've updated the image, and that's done just as easily as going in here and selecting our image, uploading an image from our computer, and then uploading that. So now we have a little bit more branding that's been done on our page. We can also go in here and let's say on the styling, maybe we wanted to use a slightly different blue color. So then we could go to a little bit darker blue. And then that's rendered instantly. I can save that. The other thing that's cool is with these style sheets, you can actually manage the CSS. So you have the out-of-the-box CSS that they don't give you control of, but you can upload your own custom CSS. And I'll just select one of custom CSS that I've added, and this just makes it even a little bit darker, but just on the top ribbon itself. So now you'll see the top ribbon is slightly darker color than everything else, and that's just a very minimal design change that you can make with adding that custom CSS. But since this CSS is loaded last, what you add in here can go over top of what's already in there. So if we go back to our pages, then we have, let's actually go to the site. While I'm up in this area, I clicked preview last time so I could see the site. You'll also see there's this sync button. That sync button is what gets all of the metadata, or just the schema and all of the table information that's in Dynamics. So let's say you added a new field to the contact table in Dynamics and you wanted that to now show up here. You would just say sync, and that will get the newest metadata, and now you would be able to see that in here. It's also with like any changes you made to your forms or your views, you want to have those be rendered and added in. You have that sync capability. So if we click here and do a preview, then I can see this is our Journey Enterprise Shoes site. You have all these little buttons that we've added, and then the images were just easily dropped in. You'll notice I am not signed in, and so I don't see a couple of the other pages that were created on this site. There's a leave a shoe review, exchange a shoe, vendor request form. I don't see any of that because I am just an anonymous user. And you can allow anonymous users, or you can disable that as well. So here I just have this contact us page that I could fill out, and that would let Journey Enterprise know that I would like to be contacted. So let's go and look at what it would look like as a customer. So I'm going to sign in, and this is just using the local sign in that uses the contact record, and they just set up a username and password. Yeah, so now you'll see this is, I'm signed in as Joe the customer, and this is where I can edit some of my profile information that is shown on the contact record. And then I can change my password, change my email, have a little bit of control there, and also change my notification preferences. So now that we have this open, now I see that there's another page, the leave a shoe review. So here I can, as a customer, I can leave a review on a specific shoe and give the Journey Enterprise my feedback. So I'm just going to click create, and so I'll open up a new form where I can go and select one of my products. And I can give it a rating. So another cool thing you can do with these with the Power Pages is you can have custom form controls that you've created for your Dynamics environment also be visible in your Portals environment or your Power Pages environment. So this one is a star rating one. This is one of the out-of-the-box ones that is added. So I can say 5 stars, best shoe ever. And then what I did here is it's able to auto-populate the customer in this field here to where I know that this was reviewed by that specific customer. So I can just save that, and then now I'll see that new reviews here, they can see it, and then I can also see it on the Dynamics side. So this is an example of using a list. So if we go over to this site, here's our leave a shoe page, or leave a shoe review page. Here you'll see we've added a list, and we can edit what that looks like. So we're choosing a specific table, and then we can select the view to show what actual columns are on there and what's being filtered. Then you have your data, where when I don't want this, in this case, I didn't want it just to be a list of records. I wanted them to actually be able to create a new record. So in here, you can toggle all these options of giving them the ability to view, edit, delete. So in this case, we just did create or delete. And you have even more functionality that you can customize here, where I can tell it, just open up the form, default form, or a specific form that's associated to this entity. But in this case, I wanted to actually customize that form a little bit. So then I'm able to select web page and review page, and that is an actual, just another page that we didn't want in the main navigation. But that's where we can, this is still associated to the form. I'm trying to select the whole form. So it's still associated to the product review and the information form, whatever form that you want to select. But once I've loaded it in, then I can make customizations, change things a little bit. And in this case, we updated the rating. So we wanted it to do a custom Power Apps component framework field. And so when we turned that on, then since in the form itself, we configured it to use that specific component, it loaded that in. Another thing you'll see is it has this CAPTCHA. So you can control when that is or isn't there. So a little bit lower, we have this show CAPTCHA for anonymous users. So you're having a bunch of anonymous users fill something out and you want to protect yourself against somebody spamming that registration form, and now you have thousands of contact records in your, or whatever table records in your environment. Then you can turn on the show CAPTCHA that kind of forces someone to prove themselves. Then you have the even more customization where you can decide whether I only show this for anonymous or authenticated. So a lot of the times when someone's already authenticated, you know that's a user, they've already signed in. But if you're wanting extra security, where you may be worried that somebody is getting access to this account and could still use something to spam the form, then you can do the CAPTCHA at the authenticated users level as well. Another newer thing that they've added is the ability to enable attachments straight from Power Pages. This before had to be done in the Power Platform. You had to go into the form itself, go add extra information and tell it, I want to add the ability to do attachments, and you have all this other configuration. But now you can do that just straight from here, and you don't need to understand the table structure of portals or Power Pages on the back end. So let's look at one of the pages that is using that. So we have this returns request. Sometimes I'll just take a second to load and then we'll see the full form, but we can just edit this in the meantime. So this one, when they're creating a returns request, we're saying, hey, we want this to be a case. And so then here we have the data, we're telling it to create a new record. You also have the on submit, that you can decide what happens after they submit a form. So do I just want to display a message saying your detail has been successfully submitted, or do I want to redirect them just back to the home page or any other page? So you have control of what that submit button does. So here's your attachments. Once you enable attachments, then you have a little bit more control of attachments required, whether you allow multiples. You can do a little bit of a display, and then you can also make sure that nobody's uploading their 100 gig banner image that that is now taking up a lot of storage on your dynamic site. So it's really nice to be able to configure that. You can also specify which file types are allowed so that users aren't uploading anything malicious, but also can help with your actual interaction with the clients, where you only want them to do a PNG and a JPEG, and you don't have to go back and get that specific file from them because they uploaded a format that you didn't support. So that's our attachments. Let me refresh this page so we can get that return request form to load. Okay, so let's just go look at this on the portal management side. So one thing that you can do is, if you wanted to go to portal management, you can access it from this ellipses here. And this is just a little bit more backend configuration that you're doing in your environment. So now we can go to our forms, and I'm going to show you just kind of how we added the auto-populate of some of the fields, because you can pre-populate those fields so that users aren't having to put in information that you already have access to or is specific to them. So let's look at the product review form where we added that reviewed by field. So in here you have the entity form metadata. And so I added a new entity form metadata where over here you select which field it is on your table that you want this to be pre-populating or controlling. Once you add this in, it updates what the logical name is. You don't have to go grab that yourself. But then you have these couple options here: a pre-populate a field or set value on save. So in our case, I was just doing both. But here you have your type of, you can do like today's date, a specific value, or the current portal user. And if you select the current portal user, then you can go and select what fields on that portal user you're actually wanting to associate. So I just wanted to associate the record itself. And so I was just associating to the ID, but you have a little bit more control there as well. So this just shows like all the different ways that you can customize your portal that is now Power Pages. And so Power Pages was in preview until just a couple weeks ago, and now it's generally available. And there's just a lot of different new opportunities and ways to use this platform. So now that that's done, do you guys have any other questions? Should look in the chat, see if I see any others coming through.
Yeah, Logan, I just want to remind everybody to please fill out the survey. I just sent out the link to it in the survey. I'll send it again. There it is. Just reminding everybody about the drawings with the gift card and the other prize. I believe it was a Pro 9, I believe. But we value your guys' opinion. So we want to hear from you. This is how we improve. But I thought Logan did a great job, and if there's any other questions, just put it in the chat. But great job, Logan, and you did a great job.
And we'll leave this open for a couple minutes to see if anybody else has questions, but I appreciate you guys attending.